So for first-time home buyers, because obviously we're heading into there's a lot of headlines out there, a lot of things to look out for. What advice would you guys give a first-time home buyer to even get started? Because I deal with even some family member that don't know that it doesn't cost to get an initial consultation, get some information, get some insight. Sure, a lot of people have heard different things about the real estate market, and what would you guys kind of point the first-time home buyer?
Yeah, we'd like to go ahead. We like to sit down with our buyers first and kind of give them a lay of the land and get to know them. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the consultations I feel are a good way not only for the buyer or the investor, whoever it may be, is a good opportunity for them to get to know us, but more importantly, it's an opportunity for us to get to know them as well, right? Because we can't, and I've struggled in the past if some buyers are a little bit more eager to just kind of start walking through houses, starting to get that feel, which, I don't necessarily blame them. Once you kind of make that jump and kind of make that decision that you're going to be getting into the housing market, you kind of want to hit the ground running. But with that being said, I feel like that initial sit down just sets such a good foundation, such a good kind of scaffolding for what you're trying to build in the position that you're trying to get in, that it really does help, and it is at no cost to anybody who is involved. And another thing I just wanted to touch on was, I think the biggest thing that I always tell my buyers, and Joe kind of already mentioned it too, that I think a lot of people are waiting for interest rates, but also I think a lot of people are waiting for other people, right? I feel like it's comfortable most when, your friends buying, cousins buying, maybe your aunt and uncles are moving. Once that kind of starts to get in front of you, those conversations are starting to be had, you don't feel like you're as much at risk of making a bad decision because other people are making that decision along with you. Naturally, people want to, gravitate towards other people. You want that sense of community. That's just a natural thing from a human perspective. With that being said, the one thing I always tell my buyers is if it's a good time for you, it's a good time to purchase or sell. And like Joe touched on, it's all relative. Every market presents its different challenges, has its benefits. This one in particular, you have the opportunity to do your own due diligence. You have the opportunity to kind of slow things down and not walk through a house on a Friday, get a pre-inspection, talk to the bank, and then you're having to write a cash offer because there's 5 other people at the door waiting to put in an offer themselves. So I would say that there's benefits to that. And then maybe your downsides are you going to take a little bit longer on market to sell? Very possibly. But even with that being said, I think, myself, Joe, and a lot of our team members can attest to the fact that if you present a house properly, marketing, photos, virtual tour, drone footage, and most importantly, your price point, that house will move. It's not a matter of whether or not, the market's going to take a turn. It's like a good product that's presented well at a proper price point is always going to move regardless of the conditions of the market. And I personally have seen that over the last 6 to 8 months, where you do have things a little bit more sticky. You do have things a little bit more on the buyer's side. But at the same time, I just saw a house last week. I won't, put the address out there. But with that being said, it was on market from Monday to Wednesday. They received a preemptive offer before their offer date that was set, and they sold for $70,000 over list. That still happens. I think there's a misconception amongst people right now that day is gone. It's not that it's necessarily gone. It's just it's happening fewer and far between, naturally, because there's more options to choose from. And then also there's people who purchased, unfortunately, a little bit too high in that peak, and they're expecting for someone to come in and give them a similar purchase price, if not more. And unfortunately, people aren't doing that. Unfortunately for the seller, they're not doing that. And that's just kind of the way it is. But I do feel like there's a lot of misconstrued ideas in the market.
Those strategies that sellers use. Every strategy has its potential and its benefits. But the whole point of that low price strategy before was there was a lot of buyers fighting for homes. So rather than showing your cards, everybody was lowering their price at a very attractive price because they knew they would have 8, 10 plus buyers fighting for that home. And then they would let the buyers dictate the value rather than the sellers show their cards on what they think it's worth. Because many times a buyer thinks it's worth more than what maybe the seller thinks it's worth. In today's market, the reason that doesn't work as often is because buyers are in a little bit more control with more options that are out there on the market. And when they see a house that's priced low and people are fighting for it, they don't know if they want to jump in, fight for that home and pay that price higher when there's other houses out there that they don't have to do that for. And the reason sellers are steering away from that a little bit more in today's market is for that low price strategy to work, you need bodies in the door and offers on the table. And unless you're confident you're going to have those multiple offers, the strategy is not going to work. If there's not enough buyers out there to fight for the home, then you're just not going to get the result you want. If it's a slower burn and you need to find the particular buyer for a very particular house, then you're going to have to use a strategy where you start higher, leave yourself some room to negotiate, and wait it out until the right buyer comes along. But some of those houses that are getting those multiple offers and selling over, those are in desirable areas and in areas where the seller's agent and the seller know that there's more than one or two buyers out there that are willing to fight for this home. And so that strategy still does work, but it doesn't always work. And that's why a lot of buyers and people watching the market see price changes all over the place, where people start low, then they move back up, and then they adjust, because everybody's trying to adjust to a changing market, and different strategies are being tested out there. And it can be very confusing for buyers when they're seeing similar houses listed low and some are listed high, and then the low goes up higher and the high comes down lower, and it moves around. But it's just adjusting to the current market conditions we're in, and we're going to see more of that over the next 6 months as things start to pick up again. You're going to see strategies continue to change.